Hi guys, welcome to this new customer interview today. I'm super excited to announce we have Peter Joseph. He's been with us for the past 6 months in the Reality Mastery program. Dude, I'm super excited to have you on board. Just a quick highlight. We've seen Peter go from, kind of having his business wiped out, his consulting business, his performance consulting business wiped out by COVID, to taking that to now doing around 50 grand a month. And he also went from having a full-time job as a flight attendant to completely quitting that and doubling down on this full-time. So Peter, I'll just let you do a quick intro about yourself, where you're from, and a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. So Peter Joseph, I'm from everywhere. Born in New York City, grew up in Southern California, and now am in the Washington, D.C. area in Chesapeake Beach, Southern Maryland. And again, as Kwasi just mentioned, just working on my own business now and taking that to where I want it to go.
Dude, your story has been so inspiring. Like, I remember your posts in the group where you were like, nothing is going my way. Nothing is happening. How do I keep myself positive? How do I stay in a good state of being despite that? And then all of a sudden, it was just an asymmetric growth, right? Like all of your hard work, you just got rewarded for it. So yeah, I want to kind of speak about before you joined us in the Reality Mastery program. What was life like? Why did you make the decision to join?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me give you the condensed version of that. So as you mentioned, I worked for an airline, flight attendant, which is lots of fun, loved it, but not my lifelong dream. And had a consulting business, well, present tense, still have a consulting business. I was doing it the old school way, which is, go out there, pound the pavement, find some clients. The clients would kind of show up, and I lucked into getting, through word of mouth, a client that I was able to stay with for 3 years, but that contract ended. And right about that point, I was just basically scraping by. I was just about to get another client. They were in the cruise ship industry, and of course, COVID just completely decimated that. And I got to the point where, I'm literally spending up savings and thinking, what am I going to do? And I'd been exposed to this type of material and this type of program before, but I would say probably more on a surface level than what I actually ended up with here. So long story short, I just decided to, actually, Kwasi, to give a shout out to you. I've started watching your videos on YouTube, which were just recommended to me because of the content I had been watching. And I listened to a few of them for a couple months, and I thought, from what I already know, this guy knows what he's talking about. I can usually see through the holes in some of the other things that I've seen people present. It's like, this guy's like nailing it every time. And I decided at the end of one of these videos, I said, I'm just going to go ahead and book that call and let me just talk to him and just see if this is a fit. And halfway through the conversation, I knew it was. And so signed up and just decided to commit to it.
I love it. Awesome, man. The rest is history, right?
It is. It's ongoing history.
Yeah. So. Good. I think I briefly remember us talking, like even back in that conversation, and don't ask me how I remember. I just have a good memory in terms of our clients. But I remember you mentioning how, like before, when you were in a corporate career, you had your boss walk all over you. And it was like sort of like, you were in this position of, you were given things that you didn't really want to do. You were just following orders. So what was that like? And, looking back at that, how do you see yourself having changed?
Oh gosh, that's the literally the $1 million question. So it was all I knew. I think, like so many people, I was just programmed. That's what you do. You go to school, you get a degree. I got the master's degree. You get into a corporation. I worked for a very prestigious media firm, and got into this director level job, and that's what everybody dreams of. And they were paying me 6 figures, and I figured that was life. I had a boss who was abusive, essentially, just absolutely abusive, not just to me, but pretty much to all of us who reported to him. And we'd be in each other's offices crying about it, but we all stayed there because, that's the dream, right? That's where we're all supposed to be, and it's probably that way everywhere else.
Right.
And it finally got to the point where, cutting a little fast forwarding, it just was not possible to stay in that environment and keep my sanity. It was a no-win situation. And essentially, to get cut to the chase here, the last thing my boss did was tell me he wanted to replace me because my work was fantastic. My results were fantastic. He couldn't have done it without me. But from a personality standpoint, I need somebody who's more, forceful and this and bully put, and that's how we get things done here. And that's just inherently not me.
Right.
And, I laugh because I tried to change myself. I've learned I wasn't doing it effectively through this program, but I decided to try to play act that. I knew it wasn't me. I would literally, in my office before meetings with him, rehearse and walk around how I was going to be, like this and in his strong. And I always felt like I needed a shower when I came out of those meetings because I was so not being authentic. It rubbed against everything I am.
Mm-hmm.
And inside, I just knew that's not the way to have a happy life and get results. But again, it was kind of rock hard place,
Right.
I'm doing all I know. I've got, a mortgage and the car payment and all this stuff I need, I got to make money. And it seems like it's going to be just everywhere. I had applied other places. It was kind of different places, different faces, same scenario. I was like, something has got to change.
Right.
So when he said, I want to replace you with somebody who's more like this, but his actual words were, I'm screwed if you leave now. I need you for another year because you're so great while I replace you, which was very confusing.
Yep.
But he made it financially worth my while. And so I suffered, I stayed, I left, but it was the best thing that could have happened. It turned me around to, not only do I know inherently there's another way to live and be happy and be more successful than I've been here.
Yep.
But I know that's out there and I just need to find it. And I just basically started looking and was already on that trajectory through a couple of other programs that I had been part of. But when I saw Reality Mastery, in your presentations, Quasi, on YouTube, and then the conversation we had, there was something about your program that did two things for me. One, it made it extremely clear. Two, it just seemed to cut right to the chase. Some of the other programs, they're great, and they had the same correct principles, but yours just sort of, for me, cut right to the chase on it. And the third thing was that it was full of things that were actionable that I could understand and dive into right away. And it got me results faster than what I had been doing for the past year or so.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the better the fit, the better the results.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
sure.
That's really awesome to hear. So you went from that career that was basically like abusive and toxic with that boss to, did you jump straight into, you were like, you know what, I'm going to start my own business?
I did. I did. I had been thinking about doing that for years, and I had all kinds of paradigms in my head telling me why I couldn't. I didn't know enough. I never run a business.
Yep.
I'm not good enough. If this vice president at this company is telling me that I'm not good enough, then, all of that. I got to the point where I had interviewed for another similar job in another very prestigious company. They were going to make me the offer. I mean, they called my boss and he said, yeah, I think they're going to make an offer. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? I cannot jump back into that same, I hadn't changed on the inside. So of course, everything I was attracting was a different location, different people, same thing. I just said, I need to do something else. What do I really want? What do I really want? And so that's when I joined the airline. A friend of mine who had done the same thing said, start your own consulting business. I'll show you how. I did it a few years before you, and go back to flying just simply because you loved it and it'll give you your health insurance. And I thought, what the heck? I put in I had done that job right after college. I applied again, just out of the blue, got the health insurance, got the paradigm that said you need at least a baseline that was covered, but it was so incredibly flexible that it allowed me the mental space, the health benefits, not much money, but a little bit of a baseline,
Right.
in addition to what my boss had the financials that I got in there. And it gave me a runway. So I had about a year to start my own business. And it was extremely scary. I'm not going to lie. I was terrified. I figured I didn't know what I was doing. This was before the reality mastery program, but I knew enough at that point to know that somehow I had to hold it in my head. I had to have the vision of it and try to get to a calm feeling of it being done, which was
Right.
not easy in the beginning. And the little bit of that I did, I gave myself a year to get everything set up. And literally it was within about a week before that year was up, I, out of the blue, landed this contract
Okay.
from word of mouth, and it just kept going from there.
Got it. So tell us a little bit more about your business. Like what do you do? Who do you work with typically?
Yeah, sure. So there's really two aspects to the business. So what I was originally doing, which is organizational development work, it's basically performance improvement and
Mhm.
people development within organizations.
Got it.
Is primarily, I would say right now, that's 50% of what I do. So things like developing employees, performance management, helping companies to align everybody's work with their strategy, getting the systems in place, selection and hiring, getting the right people in, that standard kind of stuff with diagnosing the issues and getting those systems in place. But the other 50% that I've added more recently is very similar to what you do, with more of some individual work for sure, but I want to take that work into corporations, which is what I'm also doing now. So it's basically the mindset change. And these principles of creating the reality that you want to create.
Mhm.
Certainly, I do that with individuals, but I'm bringing that into the corporate work as well.
That's really
So
important.
essentially, those are the two facets.
Got it. So you basically work with organizations as opposed to individual clients, right?
Yeah, both. But right now, I would say it's probably 60% organizations, 40% individuals. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And so you started that as a timeline, just so I'm clear on it, 1.5 years ago?
Well, the consulting business, the organizational consulting business, is 5.5 years ago.
Got it.
The individual work that I've been doing is within about the last year.
Okay.
Yeah, the
So
mindset work last year.
got it. So the organizational coaching, you're doing it for like 5 years, but what were your revenue? What were your numbers like? And because I don't know when you were at that job too, when you quit, because I assume you started up the organizational coaching right after you quit, right?
Right after, yeah. So I can even give you years if you want them. So I
Yeah.
left the media company in 2015,
Okay.
and literally started the business like at the same time, right as I left. I
Okay.
literally started it right then. So 2015, I want to say February. So it's going on 6 years, 5.5 going on. Actually, it'll be 6 years next month. Time flies. Yeah. And so revenue wise, it was inconsistent. My first year, as I was setting things up, I had a loss.
Yep.
The second year, when I got that client, hospital client I worked with, I'm trying to remember now, I did about 120 for the year that year, which was okay, but not really where I wanted to be. My goal's always been 7 figures.
Yep.
I think the year after that, I did like maybe 150, 160, somewhere around there. My best year, I did 209.
Mhm.
And then it dropped off from there. So it's, the last year, this year I've done pretty well. Last year, for example, I took another loss. So it's been kind of inconsistent, and it's been in the lower end of 6 figures
Gotcha.
on a good year, and like a loss on other years. So it oscillated.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose the biggest reason like the business went out was because of COVID, right? One of the big hits.
Yes, I'm going to talk out of two sides of my mouth. If you look at it from a traditional point of view,
Yep.
that is correct. It's like it's COVID. People aren't doing anything. This company I'm working with works with the cruise ship industry. They've been decimated. So yes, but from what I know now, of course, from your program, that doesn't have to have any bearing on anything. And
Yeah,
that's what ultimately got me the results, even in the middle of this pandemic year.
100%.
Yeah.
So just as a highlight, what was like, you were in the program from, 6, 7 months ago
Yeah.
up until now,
Mhm.
but you didn't get like overnight results, obviously.
No, 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 not over fairly quickly. It
Yeah.
took a few months, but not overnight. No,
Right, right. No magic pill.
no, oh no.
But to give us a little bit of a highlight of the hero's journey. Like,
Sure.
where did you start off? Where was the business then? And internally, because from what I remember, there was a lot of uncertainty at that point. You had
Oh,
just
yeah.
left. Yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure. So you know, literally the contract that I thought I was going to have for the year under my old school way of doing my business evaporated.
Yeah.
And that journey really starts in my own mind, where I was like, holy Moses, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Nobody's going to want to hire me. I can't go in and work one-on-one. What am I going to do? I guess I'll go back to some sort of corporate job. No, I don't want to do that. So there was a fight going on in me,
Hmm.
and paradigms that I had in my head that said, my options are extremely limited and I may have to go back to some corporate job that I don't want to do.
Hmm.
And honestly, what I did was I somehow managed to quiet the chatter in my head enough to say, all right, there's got to be a solution out there. I don't know what it is. And that led me to searching for that solution. And YouTube was one of the channels for that. And as I searched YouTube for anything in this realm that would help me, I was drawn to things and things were recommended. That's when your program showed up, as I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
I listened to a lot of what you said. From what I already knew, it made sense. We had the phone call, boom, dove in. Now, the one thing I really want to make clear, you talk about it not being a magic bullet. That programming was still in there.
Yep.
So there was definitely an oscillation. There was the excitement in the beginning.
Hmm.
There was the, oh my goodness, have I done the right thing? Maybe I'm crazy and I shouldn't have done this. No, 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 no. It's okay. You're doing the right thing. There was a lot of back and forth, which makes sense when you've
Yep.
got a paradigm programmed in there and you're trying to put a new one in. So the best way to describe my journey is, you think of that old analogy of a jar of muddy water, which is what you don't want.
Yep.
And you gradually trickle clear water into it. It doesn't happen overnight, but gradually the water clears out and all of a sudden you look at it and very quickly you have a jar full of clear water. That's the best metaphor that I can use to describe that journey. So honestly, I had my moments of doubt for sure, a lot,
Hmm.
and terror a lot, and wanting to run back to what I knew, a corporate job, a lot. But as I continued to apply that, gradually, like the clear water going into the jar of muddy water, it gradually released itself. And then little by little, there were little signs of results, and then actual results that started to happen. So, the one thing I can say that really kept me on the rails during the journey was to trust the process, which was pretty easy to do, especially the way it's all very clearly laid out. And frankly, to make the commitment to doing the work.
Yeah.
Make the
Absolutely.
commitment to doing the work. And, I've got my, I've got my
Nice.
binder. It's right here. I did the jumping off point for me was and I'm thinking back to week one. It was I'm going to call it by the wrong name. It was the 7 layers. Is
Levels
that
of
right? The
why?
original?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I did that, the 7 whys. And I went on to the group and I asked if somebody would help me, and somebody did. Which was great. And then she recommended to me, which I definitely want to pass along, because this is going to sound a little trivial, but this was kind of the game changer for me. She said, go through all of the modules, get yourself a binder, print everything out, put it in slip sheets. So you have no excuse.
Oh
It's all
man.
right here. It's there. You don't have to
Who
go, oh,
recommended
where?
that to you? I would love to know.
Kim Belkin, I think her name was.
Got it.
I think that's right. Yeah, she's still very, very vocal in the group.
Yeah.
And I thank her for that, because that gave me no excuse. So, I wake up in the morning and go, okay, I've got to do this. I didn't, in the beginning, I had to say, okay, wait, did I download that? Okay, where is it? Okay, let me find it. Nope, it was all right here. It's right there. Do the work.
Yep.
So that set me up to do the work. And honestly, from there, it was a matter of doing the work. And from there, for me anyway, in the journey, the most pivotal element of the results that I got, I will say up, down, and sideways, was week 2. Now, it took me 3 weeks to do week 2 because to do week 2, I didn't want to rush it. And to do week 2 effectively, I had to really think about and get clear on what I wanted. Part of what I discovered in this program is what I thought I wanted on the surface, in a way, was what I had been programmed to want or expect. So I had to really take some time to get under that and say, no, where am I limiting myself? What do I really want? And that's when I thought, I want a 7-figure a year income, time freedom, money freedom, and I want to be helping as many people as I can in the world to live fulfilled, successful lives, understanding these principles. And I'd love to be able to do that in corporations as well, where I think it's really needed. And so it was like, okay, great. Now week 2 was marvelous because it just took all of these things that could be disparate elements. Have the goal in mind, have your affirmations in mind, have your vision board in mind, which normally it's like you're trying to do 100 things. I thought, this is brilliant because it puts everything into one easy to manage and easy to commit to on a daily basis, the package, for lack of better terms. Right. And so that made it so easy to have all of that, know what I want, have all the tools there at my disposal, and that marvelous tracking sheet. Because, I will admit there are a couple of days where I missed something or I didn't do it. And I don't know, I think I'm like most people. When I see enough red marks or enough no's, I'm like, oh no, 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 this is not going in the right direction. We need to get back on this. And even though I didn't do it perfectly, I did it pretty much every day. I still do. Yep. It ended up taking a lot less time as time goes. And in fact, it's time for my 90-day refresh, which I'll be working on this week as well.
Nice.
And that basically was it. Then for me on that journey, after week 2, there were other tools, techniques, the mirror exercise, absolutely, for sure. And the game changer that I bow down and thank you for, that pure technique, that's really where everything started to shift for me. I mean, the concept that you taught about everything already being created, it's already there. Everything's the way to fly airplanes that the Wright brothers more or less downloaded consciously or unconsciously using these principles, that was there when dinosaurs walked the earth. So that took the strain off. It wasn't a sense of, oh my gosh, I have to create something. It's like, it's there. And as Quasi says in the program, I remember all the different scripts for the different movies. I can still see your graphic on that. Which one of those do I want? Because all I have to do is use these techniques. And for me, it was primarily the pure technique to project myself into that version that's already been created that I want. And doing that, and it got me to the point where I actually really got to the point where I could feel it as if it were real. And then didn't have to do it for very long, a couple minutes. And then I would kind of come back, but still have the feeling of it. And I got to say, once I started doing that on a regular basis, everything popped quickly. I started taking actions I normally wouldn't take. I started a Facebook group for my business, especially around these principles. I started reaching out to people that I normally would have been afraid to reach out to. Within about a month, maybe 2 month and a half, 2 months, I had 300 and something people in the group. They're engaged. Wow. I had content in the group, learning content. I started doing lives and videos. Every month now I do a 3-day live on Facebook teaching all of this stuff. I never would have done that before. That just would not have been in my my idea of who I could be. And I was scared. You know, a lot of these steps I took, the ideas came to me using these principles, and especially the pure technique. You know, you project into the 2.0 version of yourself. My experience has been you start attracting 2.0 inspiration and 2.0 ideas. Now, there's still that little bit of terror, like, oh my gosh, can I do this? It's like, you know what? Yeah, just do it.
Yep.
Just do it. And I put out the invitation to my group and my personal social media. Okay, I'm doing this 3-day thing. I didn't have any 3-day thing planned, but it's like I already told everybody.
Just commit beforehand.
People have accepted, so I got to do it now.
Yep.
And of course, they went very, very well. And I started booking clients through that.
And you never knew that this would be possible.
I knew it would be possible for other people.
Right.
I didn't see it as something I would be capable of doing effectively. It just scared me. It was so out of my comfort zone.
Right.
But
so it seems like the biggest game changer for you, and also this is from what I saw in the group, was getting, again, clear on what you want.
Absolutely.
Becoming that version of yourself. And continually being true to that version of yourself in your actions, in what you focus on, and finally doing those uncomfortable things to expand your comfort zone. Going out there and just saying, you know what, I'm just going to do it anyways. Let's see what happens from here.
That's it. But one thing I got to say that's really important is it's those 4 things, and it's in that order as well. Yeah, it's got to be in that order. Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing that I credit with the success that I've had to date is doing it on a consistent basis. You know, it's not enough just from my own experience, because I've been on the side where I would dabble at it like a couple times a week. I might write out some goals and kind of meditate on them and all of that. And then the rest of the time I was pulled back into my default.
Right.
So the traction wasn't there. It's doing that effectively on a regular basis. And something else, I'm not certain that you deliberately put this in the program anywhere. You probably did. But what I found in my experience of doing this is it got very easy to do. I didn't have to like pull out a sheet and, you know, I got to the point where mentally the muscle had been developed. I could just go there. And I found myself not just doing it in the morning and in the evening, and then the Wild West in between where I just get pulled into whatever, because that wasn't working too well. Yeah. I found myself catching myself when I was maybe drifting back. The drifting back started to subside. It didn't happen that often. So then I would find myself, it still does sometimes, but not that often. I would find myself having a moment. I'd be folding some laundry and go, oh, I can do a quick little pure technique while I'm folding the towels, while I'm running the vacuum cleaner, while I don't recommend meditating while you're driving, but sometimes at a traffic light or something, just, you know, staying conscious, of course, I would just think, okay, and I would start picturing myself, the 2.0 version, or picturing a scenario. You know, I had this thing where I would start picturing a whole, it's going to sound silly, but a whole line of clients. They all have contracts. They all have pens that have these different little colored red and blue and yellow feathers. I'm at a podium, and they stretch as far as the eye can see, and they're going, me next, silliness. But I would picture things like that in those moments, and I realized these are techniques, once I got the hang of them, which didn't take long, I could just do that in 10 seconds.
Right.
Or 30 seconds, and it bridged the, I guess you could call it a gap. It bridged the gap between doing my formal morning practice and my evening practice. It just sort of sustained it throughout the day. And once those pieces started coming together, which for me, probably about 3 months into the program or so, somewhere around between 3 and 4 months of everything that I mentioned and doing that on a regular basis. And then, you know, as you mentioned, taking the appropriate actions that were inspired from that, those actions just led to results. Now, I do want to say one more important thing here, because I'm gonna fess up and be honest. There's a tendency, which happened to me, to go, okay, so I did well, $67,345. So yeah, you know, I can kind of I'm good. I can skip it. And I kind of fell into that a little bit.
Hmm.
So, one lesson I'm learning in my evolution is this is ongoing. It's like brushing your teeth or taking a shower. You wouldn't skip a day or 2 days or 3 days or a week. Um, and it's the same here.
But at the same time, though, you see that over time, as you mentioned, it becomes muscle memory. Like
Yeah.
you just
Yeah.
become one with it. It's
You
no
got
longer
it.
separate from you. So you don't have to try so hard afterwards. There isn't as much
Exactly.
activation energy to do it, but it just
Yeah.
becomes like a natural way of being.
That's exactly right. I liken it to learning how to drive.
Yep.
When you first learn how to drive, you're like this and you're
Yep.
thinking about everything. And now you just kind of drive. Well, you have
You
two
still
hands on the
push it.
steering wheel,
Yeah.
of course, but you drive now and, you get to your destination and it just, your subconscious just drove the car. You weren't even really, you can't even remember most of the drive.
Right.
It's muscle memory. It's very much like that. Yeah. In my
Mm.
experience.
One interesting thing to note, Peter, is that you're not stranger to taking a risk, right? Like even though you're burning through your savings, you still invest in that program because you
Oh, for
know
sure.
somewhere deep inside you that this is going to work. You have that faith.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you, for those of people who are afraid to make that leap to go into their businesses full time or afraid to take that leap into joining a program that they think would help, what would you say to them?
Oh, good question. The first thing I'd say is that's totally normal because I was there too. I would probably say take a calculated, I like to use the word well-reasoned. That's better. Take a well-reasoned risk. Well-reasoned risk. So thankfully, by the time I got to your program, I had invested in myself enough, a lot more than the cost of your program for some things. Um, some got great results, some didn't, but my way of looking at it that I would share with everybody is when you're taking a well-reasoned risk, you're really looking at the program, you're seeing if it's a fit for you, and you get to the point as I did where you can feel it, you can intellectually you see it, in here you feel it, what have you got to lose? Take the risk.
Yeah.
That's just jump in. And even when I left my the corporate job and all of that, it was a well-reasoned risk. I had a game plan in place. I knew that if push came to shove, I could get another corporate job doing what I do. They're plentiful, and there's not a lot of people that can do what I do and do it very
Right.
well. So there's always that kind of well-reasoned risk. And once I had that kind of in place, and I knew this was the right thing, my advice is take that well-reasoned risk. The reason, and I realized it in myself, the reason for not doing it is the old 1.0 paradigm of yourself that you have in your head. And as I coach people as well in my own business, I see that is prevalent. I see a lot of people who could totally, much more easily than they think, achieve what they want, but they won't take the jump. They won't take that well-reasoned risk to achieve what they want because they have all of the mindset and excuses about the 1.0 version where they are. And I see them kind of going in that circle. The only way to break the circle is to take that well-reasoned risk.
Yeah, it's kind of like acting out of yourself, right? Like you're this 1.0 self and you want to become 2.0. You know you need to do this, but you just can't because it's like, oh, this is just not me. But then a part of you is like, no, you know what? I need to do this. And it's so uncomfortable, but whatever, let's just do it.
Well, you make a really good point. The point is, and I think this is really a good point actually that just occurred to me. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, well, when I feel comfortable doing that, you're not going to feel comfortable doing it until you dive in and start doing it. You're just not. And I have come to understand, in my experience at least, I can only speak for myself, that this fact that it's uncomfortable is a really good sign. That means that you've got a big enough goal. right? Because if the goal is in your comfort zone, just by definition, it's not really a goal. There's no growth there. If it's in your comfort zone, it might be a lateral move,
Yep.
but it's not a goal. If it's uncomfortable, that means that you're stretching, you're growing, and you're taking a step to where you want to be. And I would say to people who are, having that hesitation, think about anything that you have achieved in your life to date. Some of it was voluntary. Some of it you were kind of, it's like circumstances just shifted and you had to. But in either case, if you think about it, you were scared to a certain degree each and every time. And then look where you are now and look how you have adapted to it and look how that's not scary anymore. So the fear is normal, and congratulations if it's scary, because that means you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And again, take that well-reasoned risk and just take that next step anyway. And then that fear just dissipates.
Right. Yeah. Just like you did with burning through your savings and not seeing anything coming in, but then you were still able to crowd out those thoughts, the doubts.
Yeah.
Right. So I would
Exactly.
also love to know how you did that, after you joined the program
Yeah.
and you have all of these doubts, you're on the rails, what did you even take away from the program that helped you consistently stay in that state and crowd out everything else?
So two things, really. One, as I mentioned earlier, reminding myself everything's already been created and I'm downloading a reality regardless. So it was the reminder to me, you're going to be creating regardless. It's sort of like there are principles here. If I remind myself, like, if I don't understand gravity and I walk to a cliff and step off it, gravity doesn't care that I've never heard of gravity and didn't understand it. I'm going to get that result. So it was, for me, honestly, I did a lot in the beginning, and I still do even now, reminding myself of that and saying these principles are going to bring you your reality regardless. So knowing how this works now, you can stay in doubt and fear and use that imagination faculty to imagine, because I was the king of imagining worst case scenarios. I mean,
Right.
I am a champ at that. And they always ended with me living in a cardboard box under an overpass, every single time. And I could easily still go there. I have to stop that. But I had to remind myself, I'm doing it anyway. Those conversations, what I'm imagining out of fear and doubt, I knew was bringing me downloading the reality of that fear and doubt and the situation that I don't want. And I basically just said, this isn't much of a choice. I can willy-nilly just go with the wind and let it take me there, understanding these principles now, or I can do this every day and deliberately use this. Going back to the car analogy, I can just sit back and let the car do this and blame the car and the road. Yep. Or I can understand how a car works and focus on using the steering wheel and the brake and the gas pedal to drive it to where I want it to go. That's really what did it for me. And that, for me, gave me the faith to know that this was going to work. It just that alone, reminding myself of that, gave me the faith to know that it was going to work. And a little ironically, it was thinking about when things didn't work. Like, I look at the situation, I'll disclose here, I look at the situation with that abusive boss that I had. Uh-huh. And people said, oh, aren't you mad at him? I said, well, I was for a while, but not anymore, because I realized, this is going to sound strange, I take responsibility for that. Because the way he was treating me was what I was envisioning in my head and focusing on in my head. And 1.0 me did excellent work, but I did excellent work because I was terrified of not doing excellent work. I was so afraid I wasn't good enough and I was going to fail that I overachieved. And to everybody outside, it looked like I was just confident and amazing. But what I got from him in that situation, when I look back on it, exactly matched what I was doing inside of myself. And so in a weird way, that gave me the faith Because
Mm,
I said, okay, well, if I didn't know what I was doing, now that I understand these principles and I think back to how what I didn't want happened, because that's literally what I was focused on,
right.
to me, that was the proof that this works. It's like, all right, so now I'm going to do this deliberately. And I decided to do it scientifically. I said, let me apply this like a scientist
Hmm.
and see what results I get. And I got, by changing that up, focusing on the 2.0 version of me and getting into the uh, non-physical, I guess is the best way to put it, reality of it and feeling the feeling of it on a regular basis, just like I attracted what I didn't want, doing that unwittingly, I deliberately attracted what I did want.
Right.
And I'm at a point now where, just a couple of days ago, another potential client found me without me even looking for it. And we've already had one conversation. I've got another one coming up in a couple of days. So it looks like there's another one on the books. So, all of that led to, as you mentioned, having the clear idea, committing to it, taking the actions toward it. Which gets results, but I'm also finding that there's almost a serendipity to it. In some cases, without me really taking any action, there's also that element where things just sort of line up and shift on their own. So there's a little bit of both of that going on.
Both the fate
Yeah,
and also you kind of like choosing your own destiny, right? They
yeah,
both apply.
exactly.
That's
Exactly.
fantastic, Peter. So
Yeah,
it's awesome seeing you go from like being inconsistent, not being in control, being subject and reactive and blaming external circumstances, being in that people pleasing mode as well, to being
oh yeah,
someone who's confidently running their own business,
yeah.
doing these uncomfortable things, but even being comfortable in this discomfort, right?
Well said. Yeah,
Yeah. And
well,
also
perfectly said.
now taking it to higher six figures, doing 50 grand a month, and now just working on keeping that consistent. So I would like to ask you, what's next, for the next milestone? What would you like
Yeah.
to see happen in 2021?
So 2021 for me, the milestone is seven figures.
Okay.
It's scaling what I do and it's seven figures. And so the 2.0 version of me now that I've gone through this journey and see how this works and how relatively quickly, 6 months or so, I got to where I am now. If I can get here, then I can get to seven figures. If I can do $67,000 and change in a month in 3.5 weeks
Yep.
with these principles, then I can use that to get to, $100,000 a month in seven figures. And what I will say has also happened, you get into the 2.0 version of yourself and becoming that 2.0 version. My experience has been before taking 2.0 actions, pardon me, there's an inspiration, 2.0 ideas start to come in that wouldn't have come in before, that
Yep.
leads to the action. So for me now, it's scaling what I do. The potential client that I mentioned a few moments ago, we're in talks now to see if we can work together. They're a global consulting firm, and they want me to design a program for them that I would own, that they would get 10% of, that they would send out to all of their global clients and have their consultants facilitate it. So I don't even have to go out and do all of that work. Which again, that was not
The
a one
freedom.
point, that wasn't a 1.0. That wouldn't even have occurred to me. It just wouldn't have. And now all of a sudden, that idea flashes into my head. What would be great is if I had a program that could go global, but I don't want to run a global consulting firm as the CEO. I don't want to,
Yep.
but I want it to go. And I just imagining that and using these principles, pure technique and all of that to imagine that and what kind of person I would be and, walking around like that during the day, as silly as it may sound to some people. I got an email a couple of weeks ago from this firm. They found me on LinkedIn and said, "We think you'll be a fit." And I thought, well, something in me said, you know what, just talk to them. Just talk to them.
Just what could go wrong, right?
Yeah. And it turns out that, we'll have one more conversation, obviously, next week, but it looks like that's going to be a fit. But the takeaway, whether it's them or not, that to me is an early manifestation of moving into the direction of what I want, which is a program that goes global, that I don't have to have my sleeves rolled up in every day.
Right.
That brings me the income I want and allows me to have the positive impact that I want with an ease and a freedom to it. So that, to me, the fact that all of that just went bim, bam, boom, came into place without me struggling to go out there and make it happen, to me, I see that as an early manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to me, proof that these principles, taught in the program are real, and they actually work. And there's also a part of me now that's not so attached to the outcome as I used to be.
Mm-hmm.
I just know it's going to work. So I don't care how it works out. I just know it's going to work. So when I keep doing this, exactly, it doesn't have to be this company. It doesn't have to be that client. I just know it's working, it's coming, I feel it, I see it, and it presents itself to me. And again, that takes a lot of the strain and resistance out of it, which ironically slows it down. So, if I could summarize, the takeaway from me has been, yes, you need to do the work, but the inside, that's the primary work. Not the, okay, I'll do this when I have time, but right now I've got to do my social media and I've got to call 50 people. If you don't have this right, the actions don't get you the results. Doing this inside work gets the results, has been my experience, and inspires. In my case, it inspired me to the ideas of which actions to take. And in a lovely way, it always turns out to be fewer actions and easier. Instead of forcing myself through 100 things that everybody says I have to do to get this result, I get inspired to maybe the 10 things that I need to do to get the result. There's still some work, there's still some action, but it's not cart before the horse. It's the inside first that inspires the actions to take on the outside.
Dude, you're making me want to go through the program.
It's good.
Again.
I will say, and I will say this publicly, I'm starting the program again. And one thing I wanted to mention, when I recommended to everyone, one of the things that helped me to stick with the program was putting everything in slip sheets in a binder. That also not only makes it easy to go back and review when I start the program again, but I also downloaded all of the audios, and no excuse to not make time for them because I listened to them in the car. So that week, I just had the audios playing through the speakers in my car. It's like if I'm driving to the grocery store or to wherever, I could listen to music. I could listen to satellite radio. But captive audience, why not just listen to it in the car? Then I have absolutely I removed every excuse that 1.0 Peter would have come up with. And, repetition every day, listening a couple times to that same message and audio, and doing this work every day built, as you said earlier, that consistency and that muscle memory. So
100%.
Long story short, it works.
So just before we conclude, I also wanted to get your take on the community, because you've been pretty active in the community, and you've engaged with some of the members. So what's it like for you being in this, lifetime community of 6, 7, 8-figure earners, and, just not talking about just business, but the underpinnings that make a business work, the operator behind the business,
Yeah, I can definitely tell you what that's been like for me. The best way I can answer that question is that this way of thinking, this way of being is counterintuitive. So left to our own devices, going through it in a world where 97 or 98% of the population has no knowledge or really much interest in this, my experience has a tendency to pull me back into that. So having the community of like-minded people really helped a lot. Now, this community's been a little bit different because I've been in various forms of communities where it was really just all about the spiritual side of things.
Hmm.
But for me, having this community where it's not just the spiritual side and the principles, but they're also people that have similar goals and people that are focused on business, or it could be career, professional, whatever. But having both of those elements together is rare. I mean, that hardly exists any place.
Yeah.
There's usually the people that are all, it's business, business, business. And I'm in a couple of those groups, not very active in them, where it's, read this book, take these 10 steps. Okay, what's your secret? How did you get to that? Oh, tell me the 15 steps that you took to get to that result, 7 figures. And then if that's the secret, if you can just tell me those same 15 steps, I'll get there too. Why didn't I get there? Because that's not how you get there. It's that person got there because of what they did in here.
Right.
And so to be in a group that has both of those things, I'm trying to think of another group that has both of those things. I think I might have been in one group that even comes close to having both of those things, but for the most part, you've got to pick one or the other. And I find not having them both together, the results are watered down.
Absolutely. Yeah. The community has been just beyond my own imagination. I didn't see it to be like this. And it's just so great because everyone's helping each other,
Well, that's the key. And there's something else too. I have found a lot of the time I'm encouraging other people. I've had people from the group that have messaged me even and said, can you help me? Can you walk me through this? Can you share your experience?
Yeah.
And that may sound noble to do, but I've gotten so much out of that as well, because by listening to somebody else, talking through it, a bunch of us might be responding to something somebody posted where they need some insights.
Yeah.
There's a what's the word I'm looking for? Synergy, I guess, where the result is far greater than the 5 or 6 people that are participating in that discussion. The result just mushrooms out. And even through being on the giving end, in many cases in the group, it is also very powerful and helpful and helps to enhance.
You learn better by teaching, right?
Absolutely. So true. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Peter, I guess I think we're hitting the hour mark. I think it's one of the longest interviews I've done. I love it.
It felt like 10 minutes to me. So,
yeah. But just to conclude, what's for someone wanting to join and who are on the fence, maybe they're watching this interview, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
I go back to what I said earlier. Take that well-reasoned risk. I can say also, honestly, and I'm saying this from a scientific standpoint, having applied it and looked for the results, cause and effect. If you apply this, it works because it's universal law. It's law of nature. It's like if you step off of a cliff, gravity is going to work every time. This works if you apply it. And so take that well-reasoned risk and do it. You really have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Is my way of looking at it. And I will say also, for what I paid for it, it was actually far less expensive than a lot of other programs that I have been in that didn't get me this kind of result this quickly. So I would say take that well-reasoned risk and apply it, and you can't go wrong.
Love it. Amazing, Peter. Thank you so much for joining us. This was really, really insightful. Thank you so much for taking the time out. And I hope you guys found value out of this as well. Feel free to leave us any comments. I'm going to attach Peter's LinkedIn, his socials, everything in the pinned comment section as well. And I'll see you all next time. Thanks.